Test, 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 test. Hello there, YouTubers. It's the 17th of April, year 2026. Both at Australian Eastern Standard Time / Sydney time and local packing time. Again, I beg your pardon for kind of going missing for about 9 to around 9 to around 11 days from YouTube. And so just would like to to show you guys that I'm still in one piece and still alive, still not yet starved to death. Well, thanks to you guys, specifically shout out again to John, to Jack, to Mike, to and my other most beloved patrons and supporters. I sit here and I'm making another live video, owing in large part to you guys, due in no small part to you guys' kind and heartwarming support and patronage. Though yes, the amount of savings I have is rapidly shrinking, and that's one of the the most how should I put it, the most the most frustrating and excruciatingly exhausting part of my current life, though I wish nothing but the best to myself and to you guys too. Things just don't tend to go according to plans in this treacherous, hostile, and overwhelmingly horrifying and terrifying life that I have to unfortunately endure. So just a bit of warning in case you don't enjoy watching or listening to black pilled or doomer related contents. This video most likely include loads of negative outlooks and negative and not so uplifting rant and vent about the cruelty, the brutality of life as a man, as a male human individual on planet Earth, and the harsh reality, in which that we pretty much will all have to fend for ourselves and look out for ourselves. Um, you know, by making our own money and you know and acting as our own backbone and you know hero to so that we can just get by in life, so that we can just keep our bellies fed, the roof over our heads, just to make ends meet. And for that reason, I have been harboring resent and hate towards God as a Christian, specifically. Well, I don't suppose I have anything against Jesus Christ, but I do have loads of resentment against Jesus, old man slash God the Father, since we are pretty much all getting punished for simply existing, for simply living, for simply breathing air, breathing air and eating food, and then um, uh, then having to and then having to simply uh, 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 beg your pardon, to simply dump our feces just to maintain homo status, homo um, um, stasis, homeostasis, to maintain and keep the metabolism running, and all those absolutely absolutely essential and um, basic vital signs, basic basic metabolic functions, And not to mention that the food we ingest does not actually belong to us, since they get some, or I should say just the small chunks of those food, mostly soluble in H2O and in fat, get assimilated into our bodies, and then our body will simply eject the you know the vast majority part of those you know feed outside as feces slash number two slash shit, or whichever sort of euphemisms or figures of speech you would prefer to use, refer to feces in a humorous and not so explicit manner. So yeah, just other than that, have to constantly, keep our outward appearances clean and presentable, and by washing our face and having a shower and brushing teeth, all those activities, they just dream us to the core. Well, at least in my case, with my current existing mental weakened mental condition as a result of PTSD and severe depression and anxiety, more often than not, I just find I just find even eating food so exhausting, so draining to the core, and maybe you can kind of can consider that, and a minor advantage, um since I currently I am still pretty much flat broke. I only have around a few bucks you know in my bank accounts. But this video, I don't really aim to make this video another session of e-begging, since I don't I have made time, not so long time ago, I made myself a promise that I shall do whatever I can in my range of capabilities to 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 not stay pathetic, if not also to remain far from weak in the meantime. By first of all, taking a leap of faith and tried test the waters, and left my grandma's flat for several days, you know and traveled to Hong Kong, for a to attend a numismatics event slash a coin show. Though I won't call it a success, at least I filmed some videos. I had some, though not so in depth, um, conversations with the NPCs I bump I bumped into at the event in Hong Kong, and filmed some videos and photographed some rare coins, specifically antique Chinese silver coins, and something else, some other collectible items, say silver yin silver nuggets or yin gods, and some also some yes some stamps, some banknotes, though not so ancient or archaic banknotes, and some also some po- um, Pokemon cards. I beg your pardon for my stuttering, but I hope my stuttering hasn't um, hindered my ability to get my messages across. But like I said, still, it seems such a hollow victory at this point. Like I said, several clients of mine refused to pay me, and then I met some other setbacks. A debit card of mine got hacked somehow, and I lost. And as a result of that, I lost some bucks, about 30 to 50, about 30 to 50 Australian dollars in total. But that still, that even a seemingly small amount, can mean this much, can mean so much to me at the moment. And I've never, I've never, never before, come to such realization that such a seemingly trivial, you know, um, uh, delinquent client of mine you know, can cause, and can stir so many ripples, you know, so much of a butterfly effect, to the point that I am nearly starving to death. But I've still got a few bricks or bars of biscuits. So that should last me maybe two two 2 to 3 days tops, and after that, I will be completely. I anticipate that I'll be completely starving, uh, uh, all over again. Damn. So I hope my current state of um, hardships, extreme level of hardships, of not just financial, but also men- mental and situational hardships, can send a clear message to would-be parents. Please, please, please reconsider procreating. Reconsider bringing another innocence to this ruthless and heartless utterly brutal, utterly unsympathetic. Grinder, we call the matrix. It, well, at least the matrix also more or less has anticipated, how how we would act or take some measures, against its constant uh, oppressions and surveillance. Say by by quiet quitting, or by simply lying flat, as you can observe, in a large chunk or in a large part of Asia, many folks, um, many commoners, including myself, has pretty much quiet quit on life by lying flat, by saying no, by saying by saying utterly no to the system, to at least to the con- conventional system of nine to five grind, but instead choose to go digital nomad, just do whatever freelancing work I can get my hands on. But even at the present, even at the current moment, it's gotten extremely hard just to get a loyal client, a client of, not to mention, a client, and actual client that actually pays you for your hard work, not to mention acquiring loyal and decent clients pay decent amount of money. Even back in year 2024, things weren't this brutal. Things, I still, even back in year 2024, from beginning to the finishing line of year 2024, I still, back then, um I could still perceive, some opportunities, some missions, to make somewhat decent amount of money, and then use that money to make some small amount of investments, and then spend those wisely in order to make a to make a to make a a comeback. And in that sense, I guess I did make a minor comeback in year 2025, as I mentioned, you know, earlier in this live filming session and in my earlier videos. And my earlier videos should be evidence enough for you guys to see that I did take some physical actions to try to change my life for the better. And yet, like I said, at this point, it all seemed like such a hollow victory. Just no matter how hard I try, no matter how hard you know I stretch my extreme length to get the hell out of Dodge, to to distance distance myself from that wicked woman, from people that I don't resonate with or don't relate to or don't vibrate um, on similar if not identical range of frequencies. um, things are just I guess at this point I expect things to get to continue to I expect things to continue to to deteriorate. Though I wish I could do something, to stop such such trend or such you know arrow of time of utter corruption and uh, um, uh, um, uh, uh, degradation. Yet not just from how should I put it? From late 2025 onwards, all my hard work, pretty much all my hard work, failed to pay off. Except I did receive a little bit of uh, a little bit of new uh, uh, patronage from some new supporters here and there. But still, I it's just unfortunately, at least in my case, life has not has not only become long-term uh, 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 nutrition, but also dehumanized humiliation ritual. If you catch my drift, you know, and it took me nearly another, another fortnight, another, 2 weeks to just, kind of uh, recover from another episode of severe depression to so that I can sit here and film another video to you guys for you guys in front of my webcam. But it's just freaking shit. I just at this point I don't know what else I can do other than making videos on YouTube, and on the other hand try to to on the other hand try to up level up as a numismatist slash a coin ho, hobbyist. And I do kind of I do kind of assume that by so doing I should be able to find my pack. But still, so far, I don't see how. I just don't see how I can get. I can, you know, escape from this um, highly desperate and dire and treacherous and precarious circumstance. Though I did, once managed make an sort of successful attempt of escape. Like I said, in year 2000, in October year 2020, in October year 2025 by paying Hong Kong a visit to attend a numismatics event. But then yes, unfortunately, I didn't make that much amount of money. I had to to return to my grandma's flat so that I can regain strength and financial prowess 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 to go to travel even further, if God willing. But currently I highly doubt I will be able to make another trip, to even make another trip by hailing and by hailing a cab and travel just you know one kilometer, not let alone tra- travel so far to the other side of planet Earth. Though I aspire to do so pretty much more than anything else yet. Um, how should I put it? It is just freaking dog shit. I wish I had. I wish I had something or some other way to express my frustrations and desperation, but there is none. There 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 is none. We are all heading towards death, and most likely, and and a painful and excruciatingly painful and lengthy death for most people here. And that's one of the harsh truths. One of the harsh truths most people will simply refuse to hear, will refuse to listen to. Even I myself, sometimes, even I myself, you know, find myself so weak, so not accommodating, you know, towards brutal truths. You know, I just damn. Basically, the current currently the Matrix does the Matrix, or I should say God and Satan, they all together, they do everything they can, to to humble us, to humiliate us, say by starvation, by low pay and qualification, and daily, the cliche daily routine, the inevitable biological necessities, say food, food, breathing, water, H2O, and sex, and the desire, to be understood, the desire to have some company, to have someone who are willing to listen to your grievances and rants every now and then. We humans just have so many kinds of needs and wants, that so many of them that they just get so draining, so exhausting. I am at this, I pretty much stopped eating 3 meals per day, even 2 meals per day. Even when I had the money, even when I even when I even when I didn't yet fall victim to my current extreme level of impoverishment slash uh, um, um, destitution. It just takes too much time, too much trouble to even to even think about what to have for dinner, what to have for lunch, what to have for breakfast. And not to mention that I suffer from OCD constantly. I had to double check, triple check, quadruple check. The the app I often use to order food, so they don't scam me, or so that they don't trap me into some sort of debt, or into some sort of scheme of or their sort of their subscriptions you know under a disguise of a discount or sales. you know I don't know about you, and I certainly have utterly no idea how you know how how smartphone apps to order food um, in in the states work. Since yes, I only use say um, Deliveroo and Menulog and food food Panda, once, in Hong Kong. Yes, I though I use Menulog and Deliveroo quite multiple times, back in Australia. Yes, but I don't know, if currently those sort of those apps, they oftentimes um send you those say those annoying um you know um pop-ups that lure you to enroll in or to opt in, say, to their subscriptions of, or some sort of what they call you know disc offers, so that somehow they can trap you in debt, or say trap you in their recurring subscriptions, so that they can constantly extract money from you day to day, day and day, over and over and over and over. It is it is freaking disaster, if you ask me. And I just and despite the fact that I am about to starve, I still feel fortunate, and I don't have to pay mortgages or whatnot. At least technically speaking, I don't really have any debts, and that's maybe I do have God to to thank in that sense. And since I always pretty much always keep it and stay and I have stayed frosty. I always keep keep a lookout for those online scans, or say even they're so dis- discount offers, or their monthly discount offers under the under the mannequin, or the under the masquerade, or the under the disguise of 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 their so-called deals or discount or offers. But in truth, as a matter of fact, are they are some sort of scam. They are some sort of um recurring subscriptions that that constantly attempt to to trap you into their their scheme of making you pay more and more and more, you know over the years, over even a decade, blah blah blah. You go figure. I'm going through a mortgage application. Is how I risk being home 10 days. Damn, that's harsh. Unfortunately, there is pretty much nothing I do to give you a helping hand, since even I myself don't have the money to even buy some proper food. But just before just so you know, before you decide to say before you decide to enroll in something, or in some sort of subscriptions, ask yourselves, do you really need it? Do you really absolutely need such a thing to to um to survive, or to live a quality life? Do you really need it? Do you really need to put all those shackles upon yourselves? And then you pretty much fall victim to, or even fall a slave. You pretty much, I beg your pardon, you pretty much become a slave, to those big corporations, and those oligarchs, that have pretty much monopolized um, every business in your country or region. Say most typically speaking, in the case of the United States, in the case of the states, or in case of the in case of America, it is totally at its finest, at its zenith, since America, you can consider the United States, a gigantic, a huge corporation, a huge in operated business entity, as stated, in its constitution, at its inception, or founding, say back in the in the mid to late seventeens or centuries. I'm not really good at memorizing those facts of history, of human history. So I beg your pardon in case I gave you the wrong numbers. But just so you know that America is it's a capitalist con is a capitalist governing entity at its finest. Unlike Australia, Great Britain, some other European countries, maybe some sort of socialism um, kind of still exist, but not so in America, and certainly not so, in large parts of Asia, say even in China, in Japan, Singapore, Vietnam, Korea, blah blah blah. All you can find is pretty much capitalism, even more so capitalism than America. Well, don't take my word for it. You can just simply pay here a visit and look around and form your own judgments and conclusions yourselves after you you physically pay here a visit and experience the lifestyles, food, way of communicating with the NPCs here, with the locals, blah blah blah, and learn and see for yourselves. You will soon come to a realization that um, the pretty much the whole world, pretty much the whole world has adopted and has been running on the mode of capitalism. Maybe there are maybe just a few exceptional cases. Say maybe Afghanistan, maybe North Korea. Con- these nations, maybe they don't implement uh capitalists governing system, but for the vast majority of the countries, at least on planet Earth, run on capitalism, as far as I can perceive and discern. Yeah, as far as I can perceive and uh, di- discern. Yeah. But other than that, yeah, which means you have to constantly make money, constantly, you will constantly need money, to buy all these necessities, daily essentials, say food, not just food, clothing, and quite shamefully, I don't even have the money to buy myself a new panties, since my current ones has a lot of holes, a lot, and its strip has lost its its e- um, elasticity, and I had to you know use I have to use some shoelaces to tie it up, to make a tourniquet, so that my panties and trousers don't drop on the floor while I walk, so yeah, it's so disgraceful, such a shame. Damn, I just don't know what else I can do. about my shit situation, Yeah, it's just freaking shit. And for your information, I'm not trying to preach heresy, well, to Christians and to Muslims, to all those that believe in God. I'm not, you know, I am not enticing you to turn your back to the Lord, but instead reconsider what you have been